Drexel's commitment to experiences that positively impact society. More at drexel.edu.
Reports of a new wreck not far from our studios. Gulf Freeway 45 headed in. Scott Street. Watch for crews arriving on that scene. Low 80s for the high. Rain on the radar, the heaviest to the north and northwest. That's moving from Austin headed to the east, so we could get some of that dips down below 10. 73 for the low tonight. And 30% chance rain for Friday, 70 to 80% chance Saturday going into Saturday night, and Sunday bringing cooler temperatures. Right now 73 to Lake Conroe, 74 here at U of H. Listen anywhere. We're streaming live online. It's KUHF Houston News 88.7. A service of the University of Houston. Houston Matters starts right now. Stick around, 9 o'clock.
The launch of Artemis II was a success. Now the crew of 4 astronauts will spend the day orbiting the Earth before setting off for the moon. I'm Joshua Zinn in for Craig Cohen, and today on Houston Matters, we check back in with reporter Michael Adkison about how the mission is going so far and when they'll be set to leave our planet's orbit.
Houston Matters with Craig Cohen is a production of Houston Public Media with support from Baylor College of Medicine.
Also this hour, we preview an upcoming event that explores how to support youth leaving the foster care system. Plus, we discuss skin care with a local dermatologist, send questions to talk@houstonmatters.org. And we talk with members of the Houston Symphonic Band about their upcoming 40th anniversary concert. Thanks for joining us on News 88.7. Remember to check out our live video feed on Houston Public Media's YouTube channel. We'll start with a news update from NPR and News 88.7. Stay with us.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. The Senate used a voice vote this morning to pass a funding measure for the Department of Homeland Security. That's still shut down. The measure went over to the House. The House held a brief session this morning as well, but took no action on the funding bill. The DHS funding measure is similar to a bill senators passed last week, but that measure was rejected by the House. This morning, Senate Majority Leader John Thune explained to Fox News what's changed between last week and now.
There have been lots of conversations that have gone on the last few days. I've been in touch, spoken with the White House and with the Speaker multiple times. And I think what everybody realizes that, we have to do this now without Democrat votes. And the way to do that, obviously, is to do it through the budget reconciliation.
It's not clear when the lower chamber will take the next step on the DHS shutdown. President Trump says the U.S. will finish its military mission in Iran in a few weeks. NPR's Quill Lawrence reports on Trump's first formal address to the nation since starting the war.
President Trump didn't say much that was new, repeating that Iran's military has been destroyed and promising more bombing to come. The president said the closure of the Strait of Hormuz was not America's problem, but should be dealt with by other countries that rely on it more heavily.
They are decimated, both militarily and economically and in every other way. And the countries of the world that do receive oil through the Hormuz Strait must take care of that passage.
Iran's closure of the strait has driven up the price of oil worldwide, and it's not clear any other country besides the U.S. could open it by force. Trump did not suggest a major ground operation is imminent, despite thousands of additional troops in or en route to the region. Quill Lawrence, NPR News.
Meanwhile, the United Kingdom is hosting a virtual meeting today with almost 36 countries about the Strait of Hormuz. British leaders say they'll talk about viable diplomatic and political ways to reopen the strait. The United States is not participating. Stocks opened sharply lower this morning as investors reassess the economic fallout from the U.S.-Israel war against Iran. NPR's Scott Horsley reports the Dow Jones Industrials tumbled nearly 500 points in early trading.
President Trump's address to the nation did not reassure financial markets. Energy prices are climbing again. AAA says the average price of gasoline rose overnight to $4.08 a gallon. The Commerce Department says the U.S. trade deficit widened in February to just over $57 billion. Imports and exports both increased during the month, but imports rose more. The news comes a year to the day after the president ordered double-digit tariffs on virtually everything Americans buy from other countries. What Trump called Liberation Day tariffs were later struck down by the Supreme Court. Customs officials are now working on a process to refund $166 billion that was wrongly collected. Scott Horsley, NPR News, Washington.
You're listening to NPR News from Washington.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation, supporting creative people and effective institutions committed to building a more just, verdant, and peaceful world. More information is at macfound.org.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Matt Harrop.
RS-25 engines lit. 4, 3, 2, 1. Booster ignition. And liftoff. The crew of Artemis II now bound for the moon. Humanity's next great voyage begins.
Flight controllers at Houston's Johnson Space Center are now running point for NASA's Artemis II mission, which successfully blasted off into space yesterday. NASA's Flight Operations Director Norm Knight explains Houston's role.
And the mission control team is great because they're watching the crew constantly. They're watching their performance, and we also have a crew that's very good at saying, hey, enough's enough.
The crew will spend much of the day orbiting the Earth. Stay here. Our space reporter Michael Adkison is live at the Johnson Space Center, and he will join Houston Matters momentarily with more on what is expected for the astronauts today. The stage is finally set for the key Houston matchups in June for the 2026 FIFA World Cup. News 88.7's Melissa Anahe shares what's in store for soccer fans this summer.
The Democratic Republic of Congo and Sweden both qualified for World Cup matches on Tuesday and are set to play group stage games in Houston. That means fans can watch DR Congo play Cristiano Ronaldo's Portugal on June 17th and see Sweden play the Netherlands on June 20th. Both matches will take place at NRG Stadium, which is being temporarily renamed as Houston Stadium while the World Cup is taking place. Houston will host 5 group stage games and 2 knockout round matches up until July 4th. More than 16 million fans are expected to attend the tournament throughout the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. For News 88.7, I'm Melissa Nahe.
In sports, the Astros beat the Red Sox yesterday 6-4. They sweep that series against Boston and have now won 5 in a row. This after dropping the first 2 games of the regular season. The Astros are off today, but they're in Oakland beginning tomorrow for the first game of that series. Currently 76 degrees here on the UH campus, and we'll hit a high around 83 this afternoon. I'm Matt Harrop, News 88.7.
This is Houston Matters. I'm Joshua Zinn, sitting in for Craig Cohen. Good morning. Thanks for joining us on News 88.7 and on Houston Public Media's YouTube channel. Coming up this hour, we discuss some of the challenges young people face as they leave the foster care system. We discuss skin care with a local dermatologist. You can send any questions about that now to talk@houstonmatters.org. And we preview the Houston Symphonic Band's upcoming 40th anniversary concert. But first, as you heard in our newscast, 4 astronauts, Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, and Christina Cook of NASA, along with Canada's Jeremy Hansen, launched from the Kennedy Space Center yesterday afternoon on the Artemis II mission. Over the next 10 days, they will become the first crew to circumnavigate the moon in over 50 years. The crew is now settling in aboard the Orion spacecraft as Johnson Space Center here in Houston takes command of the mission. News 88.7's Michael Adkison spent all day at JSC and is back there bright and early and joins us for what we can expect today. Good morning, Michael.
Hey, Joshua. Good morning.
How did last night's launch go from Johnson Space Center's perspective? Were there any anomalies, any surprises during liftoff and in the early hours of the mission?
Yeah, all indications from NASA has been that the launch was a success. That, there were a couple of issues leading up to the launch that ended up being minor things, things that would have inhibited the launch, but NASA ended up fixing them in time. And so really the launch went forward pretty much as expected and as planned. There have been a couple of issues in the hours since that launch, but again, nothing so heinous or egregious. One thing was that they briefly lost communications with the spacecraft in space, but again, NASA says that they addressed the issue and is looking at what caused it and how they can prevent that in the future. I will make a quick note to say that there was an issue with the toilet on the Orion spacecraft, and NASA has fixed that. This is a direct quote from what NASA says. Mission control teams successfully assessed the data and worked with the crew to troubleshoot and resolve the issue. So that's what mission control here in Houston is doing, is fixing the toilet on the Orion spacecraft.
Well, given that it's a 10-day mission, I feel like that's a pretty important thing to have fixed and operational. It's been a few hours now since they launched from Kennedy Space Center. What has the crew been doing since they launched and entered low Earth orbit?
Right. So when they moved into a low Earth orbit, essentially right after that, they moved into a high Earth orbit. So now they're even further away from the Earth, something like thousands and thousands of miles away, which is generally further than we've been in the last 50 years. So they, as I said, troubleshooted the toilet and a couple of other things. But the reason why they're staying in that Earth orbit is so that way they can check all the systems for the Orion spacecraft and make sure that everything is working as they expect it to while they're still relatively close to the Earth. And should something go wrong, they can just pivot back to the Earth. So they got through a lot of their operations that they wanted to for the first few hours. Right now, the crew is asleep, which they haven't gotten a whole lot of sleep. As you can imagine, they had a busy day yesterday. They're asleep for another couple of hours, and then they're going to wake up and get to work. They're going to test out exercise equipment on the spacecraft and really get prepared for what the next big move is going to be.
Well, speaking of, and what is the first major milestone the Artemis II crew needs to hit on day one, and what does a successful first 24 hours of this mission look like for NASA?
Right. So all eyes on this mission at this point are on what's going to be called the Translunar Injection Burn, or TLI burn. It's arguably the most important maneuver that the spacecraft is going to make in this mission, and probably the most important part of this mission, except for the lunar flyby. So what's going to happen is they're going to be in that high Earth orbit, and essentially they're going to make the decision to leave that orbit. They have to fire up the engines and propel itself out of the Earth orbit and on a trajectory to go towards the moon. But I don't want to. I want to stress how complicated this is. They have to time it perfectly and execute it seamlessly to where they leave the Earth's orbit and then gravity of the moon pulls the spacecraft towards it. It's going to then go around the moon, use gravity, then fire up the engines once more, and then go towards the Earth and use the Earth's gravity to pull it back. So gravity really is the major player here. So it's a very complicated maneuver. And what's going to happen later this evening is flight directors and mission management teams are going to make the call on whether or not to go forward with that burn. It's possible, though not necessarily likely, that they could decide not to do that burn, but the TLI is crucial, not just for getting to the moon, but getting home too.
What's the mood like there at Johnson Space Center among the flight controllers and the mission team the morning after such a historic launch?
Right. I mean, basically, the moment that this launch happened and then Houston took over, you could just tell everyone was getting down to business. This is a very serious matter for the people here at the Johnson Space Center. It's their jobs, it's their lives. It's what a lot of people have worked towards. And even the people who haven't had a direct hand in navigating or working on Artemis II, this is, the biggest mission that NASA has taken on in more than 50 years. So it is so crucial that things go well for the future of NASA. So you could just tell everyone seemed pretty locked in as soon as it was handed over to Houston's mission control. I will say I was here at Johnson Space Center and you could see some NASA employees trickling in as they wanted to watch the launch alongside the media. And when the launch took off, you would have expected, some applause or anything like that. But I will say you could have heard a pin drop. Everyone was just watching and locked in because they knew this goes beyond just liftoff, and they need to make sure that it goes successfully for several minutes before they can feel comfortable to take a deep breath. So you can tell everyone here at JSC takes it very seriously.
Yeah, of course. Well, and now at this point, JSC is the command center for this mission. What are some of the different jobs and tasks that they're handling right now for the mission?
Right. So the most crucial job that is here at JSC is the flight directors. They're the people who are 24/7 monitoring the Orion spacecraft and making sure that it takes the trajectory that it needs to. They have meticulously laid out a schedule for what needs to happen almost minute by minute at certain points to make sure that everything goes accordingly. And so the crew here at Johnson Space Center is going to make sure that they actually do follow that schedule and navigate everything properly. They're also going to be communicating with these astronauts. You think about when they say Houston, that's them talking to mission control right here, and mission control relaying information back to them. So they're basically the pulse of this mission, is what I've been saying, that they're navigating everything through this. That, of course, everyone's eyes are on the moon and the spacecraft above it, but it's Houston that's getting them there.
At any point, do we expect, is the crew going to make any contact with the public? Are there scheduled video downlinks or a press conference where we can hear directly from the astronauts at any point?
Yeah, so NASA is hoping to do a downlink as soon as this evening. It's going to be pretty late, like around 9:30 tonight Central Time. But there are going to be several other opportunities for downlinks, including as they get closer to the lunar flyby, including, I believe, the night of the lunar flyby, that they're probably going to talk about what they saw and how it felt to see the moon that evening. But the first chance that we're going to hear from the astronauts is likely this evening. And we are going to hear from Johnson Space Center officials after that translator injection burn as well.
Yeah, so you mentioned the translunar injection burn is kind of the next big step for this. Beyond that, if that becomes a go and they do kind of set off for the moon, what is everyone kind of waiting for next? Is there a particular maneuver or checkpoint after that point in the coming days that will be a real test of Artemis II?
I would say that the TLI burn is honestly the real test. That's kind of what I've been told by flight directors that I've spoken with, that's kind of what everyone's got their eyes on, is making sure that we're capable and can do that and execute it again seamlessly. That's kind of the big turning point for this mission. I'll say that after that, what everyone's going to be watching for is that lunar flyby. Those couple of hours where they are flying past the moon, on the far side of the moon, seeing parts of the moon that have never been seen before with human eyes. That's going to be one thing that everyone's going to be paying attention to, and NASA's going to be covering extensively, similarly to the way that they handled the launch yesterday. I will also say, I believe I mentioned this yesterday and have reported on it before. NASA says they're not really paying attention to, but it's hard not to. There's a chance that Artemis II could break the record for the furthest that humans have ever gone away from the Earth. That would also happen on Monday, as that lunar flyby is happening around midday is the current plan. They could break the Apollo 13 record for the furthest distance ever traveled. So that is one thing that, if NASA's not watching, I'm sure a lot of people at home here in Houston and across the globe are going to be watching for.
All right. Michael Adkison is a reporter for Houston Public Media. Michael, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Up next, what life is like after foster care, as Houston Matters continues on News 88.7 and YouTube.
Last week on Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me.
You count on Houston Public Media. That's why you're here right now. Take the next step and become a new member today. Every gift makes a difference. And with a gift of $5 a month or more, you'll receive PBS Passport, a member benefit that lets you stream more of the shows you love anytime. It only takes a minute to make a big difference. Join as a new member today at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 800-364-8300.
National Broadway tour of Monty Python's Spamalot. On stage at the Hobby Center, April 15th through 26th. Tickets available at tuts.org.
We get support from members like you and from Baylor College of Medicine. Baylor's work centers on advancing health and medicine through research, education, and patient care. Scattered showers today, most of it north of Interstate 10. Low 80s for the high. We're at 76 right now here at News 88.7.
This is Houston Matters. I'm Joshua Zinn, in today for Craig Cohen. Every year, thousands of young people in Texas age out of foster care without a stable place to live, putting them at higher risk for homelessness, unemployment, and poor health outcomes. On Saturday, the Building Futures Foster Care and Youth Housing Summit will be held at the Deluxe Theater. This summit brings together leaders from across the public and private sectors to focus on one urgent question: how can Houston create affordable, sustainable housing solutions for youth transitioning out of foster care? Today, we're exploring what life looks like for young people after they exit the foster care system, what support exists, where the gaps are, and what meaningful change could look like. Joining us today are two panelists from the summit: Dr. Valerie Jackson, a clinical psychologist and policy reformist; Shelena Curry, a kinship specialist with the Department of Family and Protective Services; and Dr. Shanique Walker, owner of Sound Decisions, a company that assists with licensing for group homes. Shanique, Shelena, Valerie, welcome to Houston Matters.
Thank you.
And we welcome your questions and comments. You can call or text 713-440-8870 or email talk@houstonmatters.org, or you can comment on our live stream on Houston Public Media's YouTube channel. Shelena Curry, can you walk us through what aging out of foster care typically looks like for a young person in Texas?
So I believe what it looks like is it depends on kind of how you said, if they have a support system. So if they age out and they with an auntie or a grandmother, a cousin, a family friend, it looks very good because they have a support system, they have someone there to guide them and help them. But if they age out and they have no one, it doesn't look as rewarding. They struggle with housing, they struggle with getting jobs and things like that because they just don't have the guidance that's needed. So that's usually what it looks like.
Valerie Jackson, particularly when talking about those youths who don't have that support system, from a mental health perspective, what are some of the biggest immediate challenges they face when they're aging out without that stable housing?
Right. Well, the lack of support, of course, becomes a barrier if they don't have the guidance of an adult or someone that is able to point them in a direction of stability. Then they become dysregulated and start to really encounter more higher level of mental health instability as far as depression, or sometimes we see substance use. Children that age out of foster care without support, the statistics say that 40% of those kids will either be homeless, dead, or incarcerated within 3 years. And so that's why it's important to jump on this type of problem as early as possible, because 40% of those children do end up in one of those circumstances.
Shelena, what resources are currently available in Houston for those youth that are transitioning out of care, and how accessible are they in practice?
So, if when they come out, it's many resources that the state offers to the children that's coming out of foster care. What we usually do is, if they're already placed with someone, what we try to do is get them licensed to become like a foster home. So whatever agency they're with, the different benefits that comes with it, the child is able to get. So that's our biggest thing, is like finding family members or family friends to get licensed, so we can be able to help the kids that will age out of care. They also get college. So college is paid for up until a doctoral degree, as long as they was awarded of the state. So they're able to get that. Depending on if they're going to stay on campus and things like that, they are awarded financial assistance from the state that helps them with tuition, books, and housing.
Shanique Walker, your company works directly with licensing and setting up group homes. For a listener who may not understand that process, what does it actually take to create a group home in Houston?
Well, it takes a lot. And just for clarification, we don't work directly with licensing, but we do work with agencies and individuals who are aspiring to open up a group home. And so it does take a lot. It takes, number one, the passion and a desire to work with children in this population. It's not a situation where you just want to go into for a money grab. You really need to have a passion for working with these children and really wanting to affect a change. And then in addition to that, it does take some reserves. It takes some money, some investment of time and effort to build homes that are what these ladies just said, will allow for these children to have a smooth and healthy transition into the real world once they come out of care.
And what would you say are the key components that make a high-quality group home, something beyond just providing a roof for those young adults who are trying to transition to independence?
Well, I'm an educator, so I have a long background in special education and mental health and behavioral health. And working with this population of children, many of our children that come into care, they have some sort of mental behavior health or some type of learning disability or intellectual disorder or disability. And so there needs to be some type of experience or expertise in those areas. There needs to be some type of knowledge base on the population of the children that are being served, or specifically the type of children that you plan to serve at your operation. And so whether you have a background in education or in the medical field or behavioral health, there needs to be some understanding of those population of children and what they need.
Would you say, with relation to demand and accessibility, are there enough of these good quality homes around? Are youth leaving the system able to find placement in homes?
Well, Sound Decisions, we're certainly working to be a part of that solution. There are a lot of homes that are up, but we are working to help to develop more quality homes. Region 6 is flooded. There are so many homes going up in the area right now, but we're trying to change the perspective. Licensing recently changed the requirement for licensed child care administrators, and so that does actually help because it allows for people who have been in the business for so many years, who've worked with children who have that one-on-one hands-on experience but may not necessarily have a master's degree or a bachelor's degree to be able to provide services based on real life experiences. And so in my professional opinion, I believe that there is a shift and a change that is happening right now that is allowing for people to understand the true meaning and reason for us to have these group homes and to provide a higher level of quality care.
Valerie and Shelena, kind of question directed to you both. In your experience with when you've worked with these youth, what kind of housing models and support systems have you seen that work best for the youth that are transitioning out of foster care? Valerie, we'll start with you.
Definitely relatives. So I am the founder of Monarch Family Services, and we are a child placement agency in which we do license homes. And so children prefer to be with their families of origin, and they tend to thrive best in those settings if possible. And family of origin extends way beyond blood relations. So it could be a coach, it could be a community person that they grew up with, it could be a mom's best friend, pastor. So when we say family, we think about family broadly. So it's also called fictive kin. And so either a fictive kin relationship or a relative relationship tends to be the best and most promising placements for these children. And if we can license the home, that means that they can also receive stipends and financial subsidy to be able to care for the child.
Mm-hmm. Shelena, what would you add to that?
So I would have to agree with her. Mostly family. Like she said, family of fictive kin. So you don't have to be blood related. And it helps because they previously know the child. They know the child's history. They know the family's history. And they're willing to put in the work to be able to help the child transition into the real world.
This is Houston Matters. I'm Joshua Zinn, filling in for Craig Cohen. We're talking with clinical psychologist Dr. Valerie Jackson, kinship specialist Shelena Curry, and Dr. Shanique Walker, owner of Sound Decisions, about life after foster care. We welcome your questions and comments at talk@houstonmatters.org or 713-440-8870, or you can comment on our live stream on Houston Public Media's YouTube channel. So obviously, family is the ideal scenario, but in the cases where you're not able to do that and you've got to find another way, what is then the second best case, and how can you best help those youths who don't have that kinship and don't have that same support system, Valerie?
Well, the patience of a unrelated caregiver is also can be an asset. I am an adopting parent. I've adopted 3 children from foster care, and so even though I have the PhD in clinical psychology, what has really healed my children is not my clinical background, but my patience, consistency, and trying to be present at the times that are the most compromising for me as a parent. And so it's I always have people come to the agency and say that, oh, I'm here to help save a child, or I wanna be there for the kid in need. However, what you learn really, really quick is that it's more about you as a person being selfless with your needs and your what you're getting in return, and more about being present and available and patient with that healing child. And so as you said, the second best, the shorter answer to that is someone that understands the assignment, and the assignment is more about how you pivot, how you're able to be able to selflessly assist and aid these children.
No. Shelena, what would you add?
I would definitely say someone who's willing to take the challenge. It's not always easy for a child that's coming out of foster care, because sometimes they don't have the love from a blood relative that they are looking for. But someone who's willing to say, you know what, I'm not your relative, but guess what? I want to see you accomplish. I want to see you do better in life. I don't want to see you on the street. So someone just to really show love, compassion, and understanding to the child that's coming out of foster care.
Shanique, anything you'd add?
Yes, certainly. So I actually have experience on both sides. I actually adopted my oldest daughter when she was 3 years old. She came to live with me when she was 1. She's actually my cousin. And so the selfless part is so essential and key, and she actually saved me. I did not save her. She saved me. She is totally changed my understanding and my perspective of what it is to care for someone. And then the other side of it is being with a fictive kin care, someone who I'm not related to. I grew up in from 14 to 16 in the system, and I was placed with a family when my home was disapproved, and that family again is still my family along with my biological family as well. But seeing both sides of those coins, it helps you to understand what it takes to actually have to develop and help to cultivate a person to be successful.
Valerie, what are the biggest disconnects that you've seen between the policy aspects of foster care and the lived experience that the youths have actually gone through?
Well, predominantly, the relative caregivers were prior to to November 2024. The relative caregivers, when they would come to become licensed, they had to follow the same criteria as an unrelated family. And so that in most cases, these children had already lived with the caregivers for some time. And so then when the state comes in, treating them as just like a family that was coming to license, I thought that was a disconnect in policy. And so since November 2024, we have pivoted to, I'm sorry, I said 2024, but it's November 2025.
Yeah.
We have pivoted to more relaxed kin standards, but we still have a long way to go because it was one thing about licensing, but there are a few policies such as subsidy for a child before the age of 2, and also identify our labeling kinship versus fictive kinship and what that real definition is, because sometimes they disqualify fictive kin and want to treat the case as unrelated, but this individual have known the family for X amount of time. So we still have some ways to go, but that is definitely slated as one of my advocacy initiatives to help that subgroup of child welfare.
Shelena, in your experience, are there challenges that are unique to Houston specifically that face young people who are leaving the foster care system?
That's a good question. I would honestly say just having more homes that's willing to take the kids in. I would definitely say that. Just having more licensed home that's willing to take the kids in once they've age out of foster care.
Yeah. Shanique, what about the inverse to that question? Are there aspects about Houston that are beneficial in the situations that we've been talking about? Are there things that Houston does really well with regards to foster care and life after foster care?
Well, I think this is one of the things that Houston is doing really well. We are bringing awareness. There are a lot of agencies in the Houston area, because Houston is so large, that there are resources out here and available. And as Shelena stated earlier, they just need to be made aware of them. We need to educate people about those subsidies and those benefits for those children coming out of care, because many of them, they've been in care so long, they just want to go back home. And so oftentimes they go back, but they don't go back with the resources that they have the opportunity to actually receive. So Houston does that well, and I think we are improving in that area as well.
All right. Dr. Shanique Walker is owner of Sound Decisions. Dr. Valerie Jackson is a clinical psychologist and policy reformist. And Shelena Curry is a kinship specialist with the Department of Family and Protective Services. Thank you all very much for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Up next, we welcome your questions about skincare at talk@houstonmatters.org or 713-440-8870 as Houston Matters continues on News 88.7 and YouTube.
Relive the Grand Tour. It's not just your car. It's the one that brought your kids home from school, took you cross-country, held memories, laughter, even a few breakdowns. When it's time to let go, give your car a new purpose. Donate it and turn memories into meaningful support for this station. Plus, you'll enjoy free and easy pickup, potential tax benefits, and a simple donation process. Your gift supports the programs you and your family love. Donate today and help keep public media strong. Call or donate online.
Navigating dementia and nurturing brain health. Its day program helps adults with mild to moderate dementia engage with others and rediscover a sense of purpose. Details at amazingplacehouston.org.
Tonight on Houston Public Media TV8, a night of mystery and intrigue with Father Brown at 7, followed by the Sister Boniface Mysteries at 8, and Death in Paradise at 9. Tonight on Houston Public Media TV8.
This is Houston Matters. I'm Joshua Zinn. Longer days are returning to Houston, bringing warmer weather, more time outside, and probably a greater need to think about skin health. From choosing the right sunscreen to recognizing changes in moles or skin discoloration, knowing what to look for can make a big difference, especially with individuals with darker skin tones who may face unique challenges in early detection and pale skin tones that are affected more quickly. Hotter weather also means more sweating. Are aluminum-free deodorants effective? What's the truth about aluminum and antiperspirants? And when could excessive sweating signal a more serious health concern? To discuss all matters related to skin health, we are joined now by Dr. Oyetewa Asempa, director of the Skin of Color Clinic at the Baylor College of Medicine. Dr. Asempa, welcome back to Houston Matters.
Thanks for having me.
And we welcome any questions or comments you have about skincare at talk@houstonmatters.org or in the chat on our YouTube live stream on Houston Public Media's YouTube channel, or you can call or text 713-440-8870. To start off, summer is closer than not, and that means more people will probably be going outside. What are just generally the most important steps people should take to protect their skin?
Yeah. I think the most important thing everyone has heard, sunscreen, SPF 30 or greater is what we recommend. And for lighter skin tones, this is super important to protect from skin cancer. We know that sun is one of the most modifiable risk factors for skin cancer that someone can expose themselves to. And for darker skin tones where the types of skin cancers that they get may not be in sun-exposed areas, really sun protection is so important for all the other concerns my darker skin patients come to me for. That's dark spots, fine lines, wrinkles, hyperpigmentation, things like that.
And generally, how often should you be reapplying your sunscreen?
Yeah, it only works for 2 hours. So you got to reapply every 2 hours. But, there are some things that you can do instead of sunscreen or in addition to sunscreen, like seeking shade, avoiding going outside between 10 and 4, or if you're going to go outside, wearing big hats, wearing sun protective clothing, and things like that.
And what about interaction with things like sweating, getting in the pool? Do you have to think about it a little bit differently if you're going to be getting your skin wet?
Absolutely. So if you're getting in the pool, basically every time you come out of the pool, you should reapply because it's really hard to know exactly how much has been washed off. We do recommend once every 30 minutes for people who are sweating a lot, playing a lot of sports outside, or getting in and out of the pool.
And what is the difference between chemical and mineral sunscreen, and is one better than the other?
That's a great question. My favorite thing to tell my patients is that my favorite sunscreen is the one that you will use in general, because chemical sunscreens tend to go on more clear. They can be a little bit more cosmetically elegant. And mineral sunscreens tend to leave a little bit more of a white residue, which can be a problem for a lot of my darker skin patients. Mineral sunscreens do tend to be a little bit less allergenic, so they go better on sensitive skin tones. And tinted mineral sunscreens, even though tinted chemical as well, can be really helpful from preventing for hyperpigmentation. So I say both of them are excellent. Neither is better, but they do have pros and cons.
Going a little bit beyond sunscreen, what are some things people should be mindful of when they're using other products on their skin? Things like moisturizers, makeups, oils, and so on.
Yeah, so in general, so aside from the sun, just in general, you really want to know what your skin is sensitive to. As a dermatologist, of course, I see a lot of patients who actually have sensitivities, and so things that are popular on TikTok may cause a rash for them, and they're confused coming in like, wait, this is popular, why is it causing a problem for me? So I usually recommend patch testing any new product if you're going to try it, using a small area of skin on the wrist or behind the neck, applying it for a few days before you apply it to a large area of the body.
Are there any products or kind of products you generally recommend against? Like just don't put this on your skin ever?
Well, particularly when it comes to sun protection, I know there's a big trend for beef tallow as sun protection. So I definitely recommend against using beef tallow for sun protection. That's really important.
Okay. So that's one to keep in mind.
Yes.
How can someone tell the difference between like when they see a harmless mole on their skin or a potential warning sign? What are the general things they should look for?
Yeah, so the first thing that I'll say is if you're concerned, that's enough for me, come see a dermatologist. But general signs we call the ABCDEs. Okay, so A for asymmetry, if it's not a nice symmetric circle. B for borders, we like the borders to be smooth, not random arms sticking out. C for color, so people can look at their skin and see what typical colors their moles are, and if one is blue or black or different than the rest of their moles. D for diameter, we like it smaller than a pencil eraser head. And E for evolution over time if it's changing. And then if all of that is hard to remember, the most important sign is the ugly duckling sign. So anything that looks very different than the rest of your skin.
And do skin cancer symptoms appear differently on darker skin tones?
Yeah, that's really important. So absolutely. And actually patients with darker skin tones are, less likely to develop skin cancer, but much more likely to present much later and have a lot of other issues from it because they don't get diagnosed as early. So if you're darker skin tone, I want you to really pay attention to your nails, your palms, and your soles, because those are the most common places for a melanoma, the most dangerous type of skin cancer. Dark streaks that are wide or jumping onto the skin on the nails, palms, or soles.
What are some other common skin conditions that people should be aware of, and what are some of the warning signs to be aware of when you're looking at those?
Yeah, so there's so many. There's actually more than 3,000 different skin conditions, but I'd say some of the common ones that my patients come in to see me for, besides, of course, skin cancer, eczema, acne. There are different types of rashes that cause blisters on the skin, like bullous pemphigoid that I see a lot in our patients as they're getting, I like to say wiser, but our older patients. So many different types of concerns. I'd say anything that you see on your skin that is not what you're used to is worth getting checked out because really want to make sure that we catch anything early while we can treat it as opposed to letting things progress in the skin.
And one thing that people might be thinking about now that we're in the middle of spring is allergies and having allergic reactions. Is there a way to tell whether you're having some kind of more permanent condition or if it is just an allergic reaction like hives?
Yeah, so, the hives specifically always go away from that one spot within 24 hours. So you can always tell if it's a hive if it moves. If you circle it and then the next day it should no longer be in the circle. But if you're circling it and for multiple days it's in that circle, I can tell you with certainty it's not a hive. And the things that are not a hive can be more concerning depending, right? So, again, if you're very concerned about it, I think seeing a dermatologist is the best way to kind of piece it out because it can be very confusing.
This is Houston Matters. I'm Joshua Zinn. We're discussing skincare with Dr. Oyetewa Asempa from the Baylor College of Medicine. We welcome your questions and comments at 713-440-8870, or you can email us at talk@houstonmatters.org. We do have a few emails with questions. We have one from Bobby Jean who says, I know we should do 2 finger widths of sunscreen, but is that just for the face or also supposed to cover the ears, neck, upper chest with that amount? Thank you.
That is just for the face. Yes, that's a great question. That's just for the face, and you need a little bit extra for your ears and for your upper neck, and definitely more for the chest.
Yeah. And then we have, a couple of others. We have one from Chad. I've always wondered this about the effects of the sun on skin. Is our time in the sun and risk of burning accumulative? I know if I spend 30 minutes unprotected in the sun, I can burn, but would the same thing happen if I was outside for 5 minutes unprotected, inside for an hour, back outside for 10 minutes, and so on? Does the time add up when you're staying outside?
Absolutely, the time adds up. So that's a really good question. It definitely adds up, but even 5 minutes of aggressive, unprotected sun can lead to a burn, which we know every single time you tan or burn, that is DNA damage in the skin that can lead to skin cancer.
We have another question from Joe. I am a horticulturist and do a lot of outside work. Although I use SPF 50, long sleeves, and hats, I am developing sunspots on the face. I have tried a few products without success. What can I use to reduce or eliminate these spots?
Yeah, so I think a few things that can be helpful. So one is making sure you're reapplying. So a lot of people will apply sunscreen daily in the morning, but if you're staying outside all day, it's not going to be enough like we discussed. And the other thing you mentioned with reducing and removing these spots, different types of laser, non-ablative resurfacing lasers actually have been shown to reduce those sunspots and also potentially turn back the aging clock for the skin on the face, and we also do those at Baylor.
One thing that I remember being told as a kid, and I've kind of stuck to it, is you should always wear sunscreen even when it's cloudy, correct? Yes. Can you explain why that is?
Yeah, absolutely. So UV rays, they can make it through the clouds, they can make it through the windows. I mean, you've ever wondered why, even if you're not outside, but you have no lights on inside and the window is open, you can see, right? Because we're seeing some of that UV inside the house, even if you're not outside. So definitely sunscreen should be applied anytime the sun is up. That's what I recommend. Whether or not it's cloudy, whether or not, and a big one that people ask me about is when there's snow skiing. And actually, I find that the snow reflects the UV even more. So people definitely get sunburns on the snow. So it's not about the heat. It's just anytime the sun is up, we need sunscreen.
We have another question. Is it okay to use something like cortisone every day, or should that be limited?
Definitely not. Definitely not. So cortisone should be limited to 2 weeks max a month. Yeah.
Kind of moving into more other kind of related topics, Houston is obviously quite humid. Is the humidity, the dampness, is that a concern for our skin, or is that actually beneficial to us?
That's a great question. So, it depends on what type of skin you have. Definitely for certain people, it can help a lot with their eczema. I have some patients who came from colder, drier climates and moved here, and their eczema flares less. But then for other people, that humidity can actually lead to an increased likelihood of them experiencing allergy symptoms. And so depending on the type of skin, it can help more or it can hurt more. And then, of course, humidity also can be a trigger for one of the most common rashes people come to see me for, called seborrheic dermatitis, which is itchy, flaky scalp. We call it dandruff, okay? And that definitely likes to worsen in humid climates.
Interesting. So one trend I've kind of noticed when I'm at the store is more often I'm seeing aluminum-free deodorants, antiperspirants. Why is that becoming more of a trend? And what's the deal with aluminum? Well, how does aluminum kind of interact with the skin?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So there are two different types of, there are deodorants and then there are antiperspirants. Okay, so antiperspirants are aluminum-containing products that actually block you from sweating. So they stop sweat. Reduce sweating, versus deodorants. They help to make you smell better. So they're two completely different types of products. So deodorants use either topical antibiotics, because fun fact, sweat doesn't smell. It's the bacteria that digests the sweat that causes the smell in your skin. So if you use some topical antibiotics to reduce that bacteria, you're going to smell less. And deodorant also has like perfume and just smells nice. Okay, but it doesn't stop sweating at all. Antiperspirants, aluminum-containing antiperspirants, actually kind of block up the sweat glands and they block sweat. So for a lot of people, the antiperspirant is going to be much more effective because you're sweating less, so you don't have to worry about the bacteria eating up that sweat. So it's going to be much more effective at preventing odor than just a deodorant, which kind of just like covers it up a little bit. And so some of the concerns that have come out and why a lot of companies are kind of jumping on this train is because of the fear-mongering around aluminum and its connections to cancer. The studies are mixed. In clinical studies that look at humans and epidemiological studies, we have not found a clear connection between aluminum and cancer in humans. There have been some studies in animals and preclinical studies that have found some connection to cancer-causing changes in the skin. So what I would say is this. All of the cancer societies all agree this is not a concern in humans, but if you are individually worried about, and you want to do something different than aluminum to prevent sweating, your dermatologist can prescribe you medications like glycopyrrolate or even do botulinum toxin injections in the underarms to prevent some of that sweating.
Yeah, well, in setting aside the cancer risk, what about skin sensitivity? Is it possible to develop sensitivity to the aluminum in antiperspirants?
So I'd say aluminum is not a common one. Actually, the deodorants with the fragrance is much more common to cause that sensitivity. But absolutely, it's extremely common to get allergic contact rashes from deodorants in the underarms.
Yeah. Now, all of this leads me to another question, because I'm thinking about sweat. Sweat is kind of a natural thing that our bodies do to stay cool. Is it good for us to block our sweat glands with antiperspirant, or what do you think of that as a dermatologist?
No, absolutely. Sweating is very important to prevent us from overheating. But we are only blocking it in a small amount. So if you think about the body surface area in the underarms, it's very small compared to the whole body. So I definitely would not want someone in a full body antiperspirants. You'll notice that the full body deodorants are never antiperspirants. They're always truly deodorants because we would not want to block the entire body from sweating. I completely agree.
And so you mentioned fragrances are one thing that people should be mindful of. Are there other components either in deodorants or antiperspirants that consumers need to think about, or maybe look at the ingredients and say, oh, maybe this is something that could be problematic?
Absolutely. So fragrance, like I said, dyes, a common one. So if you look at your deodorant and it looks pink or blue, or it's like a nice color and it's really fun, that can also be something. And then preservatives, right? So preservatives are very important. I know they're demonized on social media, but they're why we don't have mold and bacteria growing in our products, but they can cause some allergic reactions.
And then when it comes to sweating, is there... a difference between just kind of normal, it's very hot, or I've been doing a lot of activity sweat, versus this is really excessive and may mean I need to get something looked at?
Absolutely. So in medicine, we call it primary hyperhidrosis. That is just the normal overhyping sweat. And then there's secondary hyperhidrosis. So primary hyperhidrosis is more normal. Like you said, sweating because you're working out or other things. That typically happens in the day. It's typically what we call symmetrical. So it's both armpits, not just one, and starts before you're 25. Okay, now secondary hyperhidrosis can be a sign of a problem with your endocrine system, with diabetes, with thyroid disease, even cancer, types of infections, medication side effects. And so those will happen like at night, right? It's not typical for you to be like sweating bullets at night, right? That's concerning. Or only happening in one area, like sweating just on one hand, that can be concerning. And so those are just some signs to kind of help if you can know if it's normal sweating or a little bit abnormal.
We have another question from Millie. Any tips for oily scalp for those who can't wash their hair every day?
Yeah, so absolutely. And actually, my patients tend to be curly and coily-haired patients who should not wash their hair every day. I usually recommend washing once a week, actually, for curly and coily-haired patients. And so usually what I recommend is on wash day, using an exfoliant like a glycolic acid over the counter to the scalp to let it sit for about 30 minutes before you shampoo. And then shampooing with a shampoo that contains either zinc pyrithione or selenium sulfide, salicylic acids. You can write those down and look for those ingredients in the shampoo. Let it sit on the scalp for a few minutes and then rinse it out. And then throughout the week, you want to use a water-based, not oil-based, scalp serum. So a lot of my curly-haired patients love to put oil into the scalp. Oil worsens greasy scalp. It worsens flaky scalp. It worsens dandruff. So oil should go on the hair itself, not on the scalp, and that'll help a lot.
All right. Dr. Oyetewa Asempa is the director of the Skin of Color Clinic at the Baylor College of Medicine. Dr. Asempa, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Still to come, the Houston Symphonic Band is celebrating 40 years of performances. Stay with us as Houston Matters continues on News 88.7 and YouTube.
Listen here for a deep dive conversation with music. We know you value Houston Public Media. That's why you're watching right now. So take the next step and become a new member of the station you rely on. Every gift makes a difference. And what matters most right now is supporting the station that brings you the news and information you rely on. It only takes a minute to make a big difference. So join as a new member today at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 800-364-8300.
To international markets for everything made and grown in Texas, Port Houston operates the public port terminals and advocates for Houston's port and ship channel, all for the benefit of those who live and work in the region.
Houston Public Media is licensed to the University of Houston system, governed by the UH Board of Regents. Information about open meetings, dates, times, and locations is online at uhsystem.edu.
The Houston Symphonic Band will celebrate its 40th anniversary with an upcoming concert at the Match. Here to tell us about the ensemble and its long history are the band's music director, Jennifer Siler-Hunt, and board member and flautist Leanne Lawrence. Jennifer, Leanne, welcome to Houston Matters.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Joshua.
The band was established in 1985. Jennifer, what is the story of how it all came to be?
I'm actually going to defer that question to Leanne.
All right, Leanne, what's the story of how it came to be?
So in 1985, Ross Perot was a politician who wanted to take Texas back to basics, and he thought there was too much emphasis on football. This is where no pass, no play came from. And so the state wouldn't allow any funding for football. So as local school districts scrambled to come up with money for their football program, they talked about taking away funding for fine arts. And so out of that came the band. The band directors, private lesson teachers all got together, formed and played that first concert to show that, 40 years down the road after high school, you can still play your instrument, but how many, 50-year-old football players do you see?
Yeah. When did you join the ensemble, Leanne?
I joined the ensemble in 1992.
And Jennifer, what about you?
I joined in 2009.
Okay, so some different experiences between the both of you. What are some of the, you talk about this is a community band. We obviously have a number of big professional ensembles in Houston, but what is the purpose of a community band, Jennifer?
Well, actually, the purpose of the Houston Symphonic Band specifically is to be able to provide quality music for the Houston area and to advocate for future music educators and education students that are coming up as our next musicians. We want to advocate for music in Houston kind of generally.
Yeah, sure. Well, and Jennifer, how do you approach programming for the band, choosing the pieces to play?
Sure. We have an artistic committee that meets in the spring to decide the next year's concerts. So we pool the band for suggestions, look for themes, look for upcoming events that we might want to honor, sort of like our 40th anniversary coming up. We definitely wanted to look at the history of the group whenever we were programming for this concert.
And I imagine one of the things you have to think about, given that this is a group that consists of amateurs, semi-professionals, professionals, all different kinds of levels of player, do you have to strike a balance to kind of accommodate those different skill levels?
We do, but not in the way you might think. So one of the things that we do as proponents and advocates of music education is wanting to play a range of ability of music from beginner pieces all the way up to professional level pieces, mostly for our audience's education more than anything else.
For both of you, what are just some notable memories of the times that you've been with the band? Either a specific concert, maybe an event, or just a piece that you really enjoyed putting together. Leanne?
I think my favorite memory with the band traveled to China, and we gave a performance on the Great Wall of China, and that was pretty spectacular.
That's
we
really
also
cool.
did a joint concert with the People's Republic Band, and that was really fun as well.
What kind of music did you play at that concert?
We played our general band repertoire. They played some jazz, and then my favorite was the PLA's conductor doing Stars and Stripes with us, joint group.
That was like the first thing that came to mind was, did y'all play some Sousa? I feel like that you kind of have to if you're a traveling American band. Yeah, that's awesome. Jennifer, what about you? What are some memories that you have?
Probably one of my favorites is actually back in 2011, we started a contest for private schools in the area. Long story short, private schools and charter schools can't compete in the University Interscholastic League competitions, which is kind of a staple of a band experience. So we created a contest for these groups. So the contest has grown over the past 15 years. We've been running it to serve these future musicians as they're developing. And I started that contest in 2011. So that first experience of getting to see those students come in and get to perform for professional judges and get the ratings and the comments and the feedback, and just how excited and happy they were to be doing what they were doing. It was probably one of my favorite memories.
Jennifer, what's coming up on the 40th anniversary concert?
Oh, goodness. You're going to hear some of our favorite composers and people that we have had relationships with. Our commission that we did is Toward the Next Horizon, written by Brian Balmages. So he's a long-term friend of the band and has worked with our band many, many times. So we're going to be commissioned and we'll be premiering that piece. You're also going to hear the first piece that the band ever played, which was Commando March. Our first concert ever was the first piece we played.
Is that a Barber piece? Or
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I remember seeing that one in my high school band, so that's really cool. Yeah. So I imagine for pretty much everybody who's in this band, they probably, I assume you both, played in school bands and things like that. So I'm curious about kind of your origins. What was there a specific reason you wanted to do band? Did you have a choice between band and choir? Why did you pick your instruments? Jennifer, start with you.
So I grew up in a very, very small town. The school I went to didn't have any other music programs or really much other in the way of art, but I have always been an artist at heart. So band was the first real kind of experience with school arts that I got. Prior to that, I was a musician as a pianist. And I knew that from about the age of 7 that I wanted to be a music teacher of some kind, but I knew I didn't want to be a piano teacher. So walking into the band classroom, it was like always having drawing in black and white and then suddenly having color available to you was my experience with the band. It's like, oh, I want to be a band director. was kind of the experience of my first experience in band as a clarinetist. Yeah.
Leanne, what about you?
So in our 5th grade school, we had a rotation program in the fall. And so you did a little bit of choir, you did a little bit of theater, a little bit of art, and then band became the option. And that shiny flute in the case called to me. And so that's how that started.
I'm curious, did either of you try other instruments, or did you just kind of land on the clarinet and the flute respectively as the ones you wanted?
I wanted the clarinet right off the bat because I just loved the sound that it made. That's not where I stopped, though. Like I was constantly begging my parents for more instruments for every Christmas. You know, everybody else asked for dolls and everything like that. I was like, can I have a flute?
Sure. Leanne, was the flute the only one for you?
The flute was for me. I tried piano, but that didn't quite work out. And occasionally in the band, we're always in need of percussionists. And so sometimes I've stepped in the back so I can play a mean bass drum.
Okay. Nice. I can tell you my son is 3 years old, but he is on his way to becoming a percussionist. We just feel like he's got that energy in him. So you might have an extra percussionist in a few years. Leanne, when you think about where you've come from at this point, what is in store for the future of the band? What are you kind of looking forward to for, the next big anniversary and beyond?
Well, I love that our concert size, our attendance continues to grow. I love that we have always new people coming into the band. And I just see such a bright future. So many people volunteer within the organization to help make it run. And that's really how I know that when I'm finally ready to retire, I'll be able to hand it off to somebody and it'll be in good hands.
The Houston Symphonic Band presents its 40th anniversary concert at 7 p.m. on Friday, April 10th at the Match. The concert is free and open to the public. Jennifer Siler-Hunt is the music director for the Houston Symphonic Band, and Leanne Lawrence is a board member and flute player for the group. Thanks for talking with us.
Thanks so much for having us.
That'll do it for today's show. The Houston Matters team includes Craig Cohen, Michael Haggerty, Brenda Valdivia, Mincho Jacob, and Laurel Walker. You can tune in tomorrow for more Houston Matters.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from listeners like you and from Baylor College of Medicine. Baylor's work centers on advancing health and medicine through research, education, and patient care.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Metro, introducing the Ride Metro Fare Card. The Ride Metro Fare system replaces the Metro Q Fare Card for bus and rail fares. Details at ridemetro.org/fare system.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from listeners like you and from Theater Under the Stars, looking on the bright side of life with Monty Python's Spamalot. On stage at the Hobby Center, April 15th through 26th. Tickets available at tuts.org.
Some scattered showers in the area. Most of it's north of 10 still, moving from west to east. We could see some in this area, low 80s for the high. Tonight's low in the low 70s. 30% chance of some showers for Friday as well. 70 to 80% chance of rain. Saturday going into Saturday night. That could roll over into Easter Sunday, bringing some cooler temperatures as well. We're sitting at 77 degrees. 45 headed south at the South Loop.